can introduce you briefly, but my first question is going to give you the opportunity to maybe introduce yourself a little bit better. But we have 3 speakers now. So the first one from that side is Tanja, product designer at Safe, and you are a colleague of the person that joined the previous panel, Christine. We have LDF at LayerZero, building narrative, and Mia, founder of Anash. So we have 3 very different companies. I want to say really technical, all of them. Probably you already heard enough about Safe from the previous panel. Like just the context. Sorry, like so what they do, but this is going to be from a very different perspective because it's product design. So they're building smart wallets, just to explain that again. LayerZero, cross-chain communication, but feel free to correct me because, okay, and Anash, I would say building narratives for very technical projects. Okay, so I can go on maybe with the first question. And I want to ask you if in your corner of the ecosystem you actually perceive the bubble that we talked about in the beginning, and if yes, how does that look like? Like, how do you, yeah, maybe you can start. And as a follow-up question also, like if you do perceive it, and you might not, if you're actively working to burst it, and in what way?
Yeah, okay, so, yeah, no, I think I would agree with the sentiment of the previous panelists, and I think, at least from my perspective, I feel like we are still reinforcing the bubble and we don't really try to break it much. However, there are definitely companies that do that, and again, like my colleague Christine also mentioned Stripe, I feel like companies like this, actually what they did right in order to break the bubble is to actually find out the real use cases, to also build something that solves real world problems, and I think that's important when we talk about like breaking the bubble. Like, why do we want to break the bubble? Do we want 1 billion users necessarily, and why? And like, do we want users that are stale, or do we want people who actually actively either participate or interact with our products? So I feel like still a lot of crypto projects build for the builders, and maybe that's also fine, you know, again, as long as they focus on users' problems. And I just like speak as like a product designer, and I guess like that resonates a lot with me, like why are we doing what we do, and for who? So I think maybe even like building infrastructure is still good. Maybe it still needs improvement, and I think everyone has a purpose. So yeah, I think that would be my general take. And whether we are trying to break the bubble at Safe, I'd say not necessarily. And it is a technical product that is built primarily for crypto people as well, and larger Web3 organizations. But we did try to break the bubble, I think, last year when we enabled Web3 auth that works like similar way as Stripe, which didn't work, and I think maybe we just didn't know our users that well. Maybe it will work soon. I don't know, but I guess we will need to see. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Before I even started at LayerZero, one of the first things I told the company was that there's not only bubbles in crypto, but bubbles within bubbles. And so one of the first things, we joke that my job is narratives. That covers everything from growth to marketing, events, comms, all of that. But at the highest level, it is what are we trying to say and to who? And one of the prominent narratives that we as a company have put out is this idea that interop is solved, what's next? Because there was a bunch of different companies that were talking about the word interoperability and throwing it around where, again, that's not even a given within crypto that everyone knows what you're talking about, why it matters, and having some sense of urgency for real business, again, not in theory, but in practice. And so having a mindset shift of assuming that the people you're speaking to do understand the tech. Maybe they don't need to, because you haven't even gotten to step 2 or 3, is something I think that's a little bit of a crutch that crypto companies kind of tend to fall into. And so when we talk about building within a bubble, I think identifying not only what the bubble is, but like how that's protecting the barriers we think to growth that exist are fascinating, because at LayerZero we work with companies all the way from DeFi protocols to large banks and institutions, and honestly, I've had conversations with people who work outside of crypto who understand the value proposition and business value of blockchains better than some crypto companies do. And so reframing some of these buzzwords and really just allowing people to come to them with questions is something I think we take for granted. So yeah, there's bubbles within bubbles.
I definitely agree to that, and I feel like every time we try to break the bubble, or some of us who think we are trying to break the bubble, we just create different set of jargons that create a different set of insiders, and then like reinforce the same problem. I feel like we've talked enough about Twitter being a bubble, or the industry being a bubble, but outside of like me just being a founder of an agency, at a personal level, I'm also I would say an immigrant from India who's now based in New York. And I feel like crypto has given me a lot of opportunities that I wouldn't have otherwise. And we talk a lot about these high-level things of like building use cases and not having tech jargons and things like that. But on a day-to-day basis, I feel like we have left out a lot of these people for whom crypto matter a lot, which is like the unbanked, and people who do not have access to a lot of financial resources, I would say. So part of the solution also is moving away or shifting the attention from hype to empathy, and asking more of like, who is not in the room, and what can I do to change that? And also like, this should matter, right? That is what we are building for.
Yeah, 100%, I agree with that. And actually this is a perfect bridge to the next question that I wanted to ask. That is, what is something that you personally, since you were mentioning your personal experience, or your team has done recently to better understand the users that you're building for, or also just the users, especially maybe the ones that are left out, as you mentioned, and like maybe practical examples of like, how do you think we can include them more?
Yeah, so I feel like a lot of the space is focused a lot on builders. On a day-to-day basis, we really don't know how you and I can contribute to the space and make it better. Like there's just all these high-level things that we don't know how to practically implement. And I've tried to think a lot about this problem, and one of the answers is, I feel like storytelling is like an underutilized on-ramp in crypto. So there are sure all these high-level things that we talk about, but there also has to be conversations on how crypto probably, I mean like how these day-to-day things impact me with my rents, with my savings, or with women in India not having access to education, or kids in Bangladesh, in Bangalore, in Nairobi, and all these small places, finding opportunities and going out there and having access to resources and things that they did not have before. So more storytelling is one part, and professionally I feel like I do that too from my agency. At my agency, and from the perspective of founder, I feel like I've shifted my lens more to story listening, because with these products and protocols who are big and out there, there's a lot happening with the company. It's very difficult to like come in and try to change something. So what I've started doing is more of story listening, which is, hey, every time a new narrative comes up, rather than thinking about like, hey, what is the next Twitter campaign I can launch, or like, what is the next thing I can write on the website? Because when people think about narratives, that's the first thing that comes to mind, which is, hey, let me write case studies and put it on the website, or let me write this video campaign and put it on Twitter. But it just sits there idle and nobody actually uses it. So for me, it's more like story listening and like going to GitHub and actually like seeing like who are the airdrop like farmers out there and just trying to do nothing, and who are the actual builders building. And seeing, all these builders, like, can I reach out to them and talk to them and see what they found valuable about the technology, and kind of go from there. I don't know if that answered the question.
Yeah, I think it does, and thank you for saying that. Like, really valuable.
Yeah, I will say one example of something that we as a company have done recently, and then like kind of how I view speaking to users. I think like user research is actually extremely underutilized in crypto, in that we're talking about this bubble, but realistically a lot of the products that we're using every day are not either targeted towards or used by the people who work in this industry, the people who show up to these events, the people who have bet their careers, who like earn tokens, who are primed in every single way to use this technology, because they understand, again, the theoretical implications. Like, they care very deeply about the impact that technology can have on the world, but like, if you actually looked at how often they're transacting on chain, it's not a lot. LayerZero is actually kind of interesting in that we have an entirely in-person company. The entire company is based in Vancouver. They're all in office. There's a ton of engineers who know nothing about crypto who work at the company, and so we actually went and did user research with all of the people who worked at the company to understand what wallets they had set up, how often they were transacting. And so I think wanting to know the answer to why people are not engaging when they have every reason to, rather than trying to be right about why we think that they won't, or some other audience segment out in the world who would, like starting closer to home. I think there's just a lot of opportunity there that is often overlooked. If I can't sell myself on a product, like how could I sell someone else?
Yeah, 100%. I'm actually a product designer, and this is like my life mission, so thank you for saying that. And yeah, I completely agree that more user research, more trying to understand the users and or why they're not users yet. But another
please. Product designer, to me, user research is really crucial. I think with user research, we are quite lucky with SAFE. We have been doing user research for years, and I think we had a user researcher longer than we had like a design team actually. So we have a great database actually of user insights, and so yeah, like user research is definitely something that I think should be done way more often in crypto, and there are actually great Web3 agencies that do focus on user research, and I think people that working there are great experts in that field if you don't want to hire a user researcher in your company. Another thing that I would say, I think, again, like we're quite lucky with that, but using your own product is really helpful, and I think we do a lot of dogfooding at SAFE, and we have like different use cases. Developers also use SAFE Wallet quite a bit. But also what I'm very happy about is that we definitely have a few people at the company who come from Web2, who come from like TradFi, and it's great to get their feedback always. They are very critical. They are very like, this is not working. And you really try to understand why, because sometimes when we work at crypto for some time, I guess we have this like, something like a mist before our eyes. We sometimes might forget about certain things and just be fine with that because like, oh, this is the technology, this is just how it works. And it's always really refreshing to get that feedback from the people who have nothing to do with that technology. They don't care about it, they just want to use their product. So that's also what we try to incentivize, and I would totally agree. I think field studies, when you actually see it, because like again, there are quite a few apps that you have to use in combination with MetaMask or whatever, like browser extension. And the best way to actually test that would be the field study. Then you get the best insights that you can, instead of like just even doing a normal user interview. It might not always be the best actually. So.
I feel like you do have to have tough skin though, because it does suck to watch, again, when you think like, oh, it's so intuitive, it's so easy, it should be simple, it should be this, and you watch and it's tough out there.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, thank you for this answer. And actually, again, it's a perfect bridge to the next question. And I would like to focus more on people that would like to join the crypto space as workforce and not necessarily the users. And you mentioned that sometimes you get feedback from people that are from Web2 and they have a fresh view on the space and they're just not so used to using the products. And in most of the cases, at least in my experience, they're really keen to contribute and to bring a lot of new energy, but maybe they don't know what to do or how to do it, especially all of them. Let's not discriminate the technical people. So, like, what would you, if you have an advice for them, like, what do you think one thing could be that could help them to join the space? You feel free to.
Right. Yeah, I think what I would say is I'd be actually really curious to ask first why we want to join the space, and I think like maybe it's not a good sign if we want people to say, oh, I work in crypto, or like again like a lot of us don't want to say that. I think it would be way better to say like, oh, I work in this like fintech company, or I don't know, I work for the government. We are like developing these like IDs that are very privacy focused. So maybe it's in the future. I hope we are not gonna say like, oh, I work in crypto, because like I think it's kind of weird. It's like, oh, I work in like HTTPS or something, and yeah, in my view, like it would be great if blockchain would be more immersed in our daily life. It would be just the technology behind so many things, because there are so many cases. Again, it's not only fintech. And yeah, I would just say, aside from that, I would just say, bring your own perspective. Maybe you have an idea or a use case that you want to, like a problem that you want to solve, and just try to present it in a way that like it's not really like too technical. I guess I think it's a bit saddening that in crypto, a lot of times we say like, oh, you need to learn like smart contracts, or like you need to know what they do, but they're actually very limiting, and they limit your creativity and your ideas that you can come up with. So I think coming with what you have, what you do best, design, marketing, is great, and bring every experience that you have from the past.
Yeah, I would also say, as far as advice goes, it was mentioned on the previous panel, and it came up in every single user interview that we did, but every person I've ever met who has gotten into crypto was onboarded by one other person. And so just having like a buddy that you feel like you can ask dumb questions to, and you will probably break away from at some point as you go explore into other verticals, and you have a background that you bring to the table and find a project that you want to work on. But just like that emotional safety of not having to go look online for answers and trust that information, I think is just critical.
I feel like you shouldn't try to learn Web3 if you're just getting into the space. I feel like that's too broad. So I would second what Tanja said, which is like figure out what your strengths are first, and then try to find an adjacent space or role that is already working in crypto, and then try to focus your attention on learning things about that specific space and the projects that are doing well. I'd also say like join Telegram groups, like find a buddy, like LDF said, and to that I'd also say like once you've found like your strength and like your specific vertical that you want to get better at, also like DM everybody you admire. Everybody in crypto is like super approachable. So stay consistent and like be curious. I feel like that is also rewarded a lot in Web3, and a lot of people are very scared to like just reach out and ask.
Yeah. Yeah, this is all good advice, and also things that I personally did recently, like actually finding a buddy that could help me, or like DMing people, or just explore in the space. Yeah.
One other thing, like learning in public is so valuable. Again, everyone's brought this up, that a lot of the questions that people who are new think are stupid are actually that the thing that they're looking at was stupid. Like, if your question's not dumb, the thing could get better. I had a big gripe with this when I first got into crypto, where it was like, what are you onboarding them into? Like, what does that mean? Especially considering none of us think that this is finished by any means. So like, you want people to come contribute, not come buy a token and be a consumer. So
I want to add to that perspective. I feel like a lot of people coming to Web3 feel like they don't know enough when what they know could be very valuable to the companies that are there. So when I started in the space, like I knew a lot about like analytics and dashboards and just data and organizing content, I would say, all in all. I had worked in agencies in the past that were big like SaaS companies. And when I started in the space, I actually reached out to the creative director of MoonPay saying, you know, hey, this is my work in the past, I've just started in the space. And he was like, oh my God, this is fantastic. You know, I wonder, you know, if you could engage on a freelance basis and you could help us with this thing. And I actually learned by working in like what turned out to be one of the biggest crypto companies in the space. So I'd say like, don't be scared. Maybe like your strengths are something that a lot of crypto companies are looking for.
Yeah, I can also really resonate with these words. Okay, the last question is a bit idealistic, but like if we all, like three of you maybe, if you apply the advice that you gave tonight and you actually manage to building beyond the bubble, whatever that means for you, and the explanation that you gave before, what do you think the space could look like in a year? Like, what's your vision for that you hope for, maybe?
I feel like, for me, the space looks quieter and much more impactful. And what I mean by that is, it does not have just builders, but it also has belonging. And I think that is the missing piece that we all want, which is like just belonging for more people, for more types of people, for more communities. So for me, it's like quieter, much more impactful. It asks like, who is not in the room and why is that? And like, how can we create more space for these people? And not just builders, like I said, you know, but also like other people, and making space for their opinions and creating more space for belonging, I would say.
I would say crypto looks less like a vertical and looks more horizontal. Again, like digital payments are already better than traditional systems in many other ways, and so starting to look at applications for the thing that they're trying to do, as opposed to them being a crypto application, I think would make all of our lives better and easier. And if it could happen in a year, I'd love it.
I would also agree with that. And what I would say to that is, I think that I really wish that crypto space in general wasn't associated too much with, oh, it's like fast money. And I wish it was just an infrastructure layer that enables a lot of things such as faster payments, also like payment. ZK again, we mentioned that also enables a lot of different use cases. I think that would be great, and hopefully, like we can also, like as I mentioned previously, just kind of like step aside of like, oh, I work in crypto and like this is a crypto company, but actually like build things for a lot of other applications in the world and people.
You want to add something?
Sure.
No.
I hope we all use crypto more here.
Thank you so much. Maybe you can